Hi everyone, this is Marilyn Wilson, and I am also in the Pursuit book, and I am so honored today to be here. I want to say hi to anybody who's here live listening. I also want to say hello to all those who listen to a recording. I'm so excited to give my story wings, and I'm very thankful to Shelley and Jennifer for allowing me this opportunity. It's just great to be here, and if I talk too fast, if I get going, let me know. What I'm going to do today, because usually I do these things as an interview, is I have a whole bunch of questions that were sent to me ahead of time. So I'm going to try to open today with just a little bit about my story, so for those who don't know, and then I'm going to dive into these questions. And if a question comes up while you're listening, please type it in. I'll try to keep an eye out for that. As well as because I have so many questions, I might not get through them all in 30 minutes. If I don't, I will continue to answer in the thread under it. So please leave your questions, even if you watch this as a recording, please leave your questions. I am happy to come back and answer them at a later time. So I have a very unique story. As a little child, I grew up in an environment that I did not fit well in. So I got the message that I was broken. I don't know if that's why, but I was insanely curious about people, about how they lived, about how they thought, especially if it didn't fit in with the norm. This passion led me to study psychology. In fact, I ended up working on my master's in counseling and drug abuse. My thought was that I would take all my compassion and care, and people would come in and sit down and share their problems with me, and I would make their life beautiful, and they would walk out happy and fixed. And I know that sounds funny, but as a young child, I truly believed that I could fix people, that I could help them, that I could offer them the self-acceptance that I didn't get. It was about a third of the way through my master's, I sat down with an instructor who was also working in the field in his own practice, and began to hear the reality of what this job would entail, and negativity and the low success rate. And I realized in one moment, everything I'd planned my life about was gone. This was not the job for me. I left home at 17. I had no money. I couldn't rebrand. So I just let my dream go. I had various jobs. I got married and moved to Canada. I had children. I sewed dance costumes. I worked at the nature park running programs. I filled my life with other things because I just didn't know what to do about that passion. I assumed I just headed the wrong direction. When my kids were teenagers, they were tired of me. They wanted me to find an interest of my own. And so I sat down on Craigslist and was flipping through want ads and saw an ad for a New York magazine that wanted magazine submissions, and it was a fashion magazine. Now, I grew up poor. We wore hand-me-downs, we shopped cheap. And when I got married, we had 3 kids and bought a house right away, so we lived very tight. And I bought my clothes at Zellers. My husband cut my hair. My glasses were from Costco. I knew nothing about fashion, but there was something about that ad that called me, and I thought, oh, this can't be too hard. And I sent off some story ideas, and I was so shocked when they were accepted. I couldn't believe my luck. So suddenly I was a fashion writer, and I was going to a fashion events, and I didn't fit in there either because I didn't have the clothes, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the experience. Even writing, I mean, all I've done is get A's in English at school. That really doesn't prepare you. So from day one, I sent all my articles to the people I interviewed and said, did I get your story right? Is this okay? Do I have your permission to publish? And for the first year, the answer was most likely no, about 60% of the time. And I cried. I wasn't hearing them properly. I wasn't getting their story right. But slowly over time, that feedback they gave me, as hard as it was my school. And I learned how to listen better, and I learned how to tell story better, and I gained confidence in what I do. And my exposure to the fashion community, I asked for help, and people started giving me information on fashion I needed to know, and started to teach me about how to dress myself as an adult, because I had no idea post babies what I should even wear. And it was such a growing experience, but more than anything, those interviews changed my life. And I'm hoping in some of the questions I have here, you'll find out why. But all I can say is it was the best therapy I could have ever had. Interviewing and listening, really listening to other people from very diverse backgrounds, taught me that I am okay. So let's start with the first question here. I want to thank Randy for this one. How did your family react to you going from mom to entrepreneur? And what did you have to let go of in order to follow your dream? Um, I am going to tell you, when you start a career later in life, I was 50, and you have no experience, and you have no background, and you know nothing, nobody's waiting for you. Nobody says, wow, you're here. Oh my God, we're so happy you're here. Um, I got a lot of skepticism, a lot of criticism. Fortunately, my kids celebrated. They wanted mom busy and out of their hair and not watching them. But it was hard for my husband. Um, he wanted me to be happy. He wanted me, now that I wasn't a mom, to enjoy my time. He was glad I was writing, but the stress of learning in the public eye was very, very hard for him. When I decided to write a book, I brought that same insecurity, and he again looked at me and says, why are you doing this? It's stressing you. It's not making you happy. And all I could say is this is what I've meant to do. So family and friends looked at me many times and said, oh, it's just a hobby, you're not making money. And I want to give all you guys permission to know, when you are pursuing your passion, it's important. It's meant to be. Only you can do that job. You need to do it, and you need to do it whether you can say, look at my $100,000 paycheck. The value of your work, that you're led to do from your passion, is important on its own, and it needs to be done. Okay, next one is from Kathy. Why is it important to be a what you see is what you get person rather than a what people think you should be? And have you encountered any biases on your journey? Um, it's a good question. Growing up being told I was broken, and honestly, until I interviewed believing I was broken and nobody would like me if they knew me, I have always had to be, here's who I am, because I didn't want my heart broken. I didn't want somebody to make friends with me and then cast me aside when they got to know who I was. So yeah, what you see is what you get ensures for me that the people I connect with know me and love me for who I am, not who they think I am. So that's a good question. Taja, what nudge, impulse, intuition, or words from other authors triggered you to blossom your work into a book? And it didn't actually, it came because the universe gave me a kick in the ass and told me you're doing it. My magazine, um, when I answered the Craigslist ad, one of the things that happened about 18 months later is I became co-owner of a fashion magazine. And that went on for 4.5 years. It was 90% of my writing went there. I did work with some international magazines as well. Um, but when it folded, all my branding was in that one basket, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to start up another magazine. It just didn't come together. I went through an extremely black depression trying to decide whether I should quit writing. And so finally I gave myself 6 weeks. I had to write on a blog. I didn't even have a blog at the time, but I had started a blog, and I had to write every day on something. I wrote about throwing up, I wrote about driving, I wrote about an article, like anything, just write. And at the end of 6 weeks I said, I'm not done. So what does that mean? And it didn't really come together till I was at a Wow Woman of Worth event, and I saw Julie speak from Influence Publishing about publishing a book. And I just remember she was talking, and the tears were pouring down my face. I don't know what she said, but I just knew this is the person I had to talk to. So we sat down, and instead of 6 months, 18 months of teeth gnashing and crying and hand holding, I managed to produce my first book. So it became my new outlet. I have gone back to magazine article writing, but the book came about because the magazines were taken away from me, and I had to start again. And I waited until the universe kind of guided me as, where is the next door? Where is it going to open? And then, just like with the Craigslist ad, I left. I signed up for workshop, I wrote a check, and I dove into a book. And again, no experience, no expectations, no idea what I was getting into. I seem to love to jump in the deep end of the pool and swim. This is from Allison. You have interviewed a lot of successful people. Are there certain qualities that you see in the threads of their stories? This is a question I've never had before, and I'm so glad I got it ahead of time because I really had to think on it for a day or two. And in the end, I think the number one thing on my favorite interviews, I love them all, but my favorite interviews was simply their generosity. The people I learned the most from an interview, views that were successful, were solid in their foundation. They didn't feel in competition with anybody. They didn't feel their life was right for everybody. They simply told their story to me without apology and with no expectation that I would say, oh, you're the best thing in the world, I'm going to live that way. So there's a generosity of, hey, this is how I live my life, and without apology, you go do the same too. And most of them have been good supporters of me, even though we spent maybe 60 minutes together total. So yeah, generosity, I would say. They're generous with themselves, they're kind to themselves, and they're kind to others in return. They just have no need to climb on the back of anybody else to get where they were going. Okay, Nala. I am sure all interviews have inspired you. However, which interview would say inspired you to write a book or had the most impact on your life? I have learned from everyone. From the lowliest student to the most successful, I have been given pieces of gold from everybody. I'm going to pick two names here just because I had a long-standing relationship with them. The first is Geir Ness. He is a Norwegian living in the U.S. who created his own perfume against all odds. Layla is his company, and when I interviewed him, somebody just called and said, he's here, come interview him. I knew nothing about him. They put me in a side room with my little recorder, and he opened his mouth, and I swear my hair went straight back. He is a force of nature, and it is all positive. It just comes at you with so much love. He has always believed 100% in himself, and he gives that to every person he makes. No wonder he's so successful. After one interview, when I did run a book launch, he literally flew into town just to be there for me and support me, even though he hardly knew me. He is generous of spirit. The other one is William Arlowski. He has since passed away. He is a Canadian icon in tap dance who has been forgotten. I feel so privileged to know him. He tapped through the Anne Murray thing. He started the first major professional tap company in Canada. And he struggled the second half of his life with something called dystonia, which is very painful and very debilitating, especially for a dancer and choreographer. Every time I interviewed him, he was full of ideas and what he couldn't wait to do next. And he outright said, I will never live long enough to do all the things I want to do. And every time I had a problem I brought to him, he says, you know, there's no secret here. All you have to do is just do and be brave. So my mantra since meeting him has always been, there is no secret. Just do and be brave. Just put one step in front of the other and be inspired and head towards those dreams. I have so much respect for him and I miss him so much. Okay, Shannon, what are your favorite topics to discuss? Because I have so many questions, I'm going to just deal with one of them because it's probably has the most meaning to me, and that is you are perfect the way you are. You are exactly who you are meant to be. There are no mistakes. So an example for me is growing up, my mind races, and they didn't know a lot about that back then. And so I was wiggly, I couldn't sit still, I got yelled at for that, I was impatient. I thought everybody's mind raced and people were just being mean to make me mad. And I just didn't fit into the religious environment, so I was told I was broken. So as I moved through interviewing, one day I realized nobody was apologizing for who they were but me. And my racing mind and my incredible, intense curiosity about people and their lives um, actually made me good at interviewing. It was what helped people open up. They could tell I wasn't just asking a list of questions. I was truly, truly fascinated by their lives. So here in one side is the nosy kid who can't sit still, who has no patience. And here on the, I found why I was meant to be the way I am is a successful interview. Thank goodness I didn't allow them to beat it out of me. So if you have traits that are unique to you, that are a part of you that you feel are negative, perhaps you haven't found the gift of them yet. Perhaps you need to find the place to plant them and find what your purpose is, because it's most likely very tied to your passion. Okay. Colleen, when you go to events or anywhere, why is it important to get out on the floor and invite others to do so? Well, there's a couple answers here, but for me, it's where I find my interviews. If I walk in a room, I try to pause for a minute, I try to look around, I try to see if somebody catches my eye, and if they, or I feel led to go somewhere, and if I do, I follow that, because what usually happens is I start up a conversation with somebody totally fascinating. I find a new interview, I learn something new. Um, but also, if you have your own business, if you're trying to sell your artwork, whatever your thing is, you need to be open to conversations with people. That doesn't mean you have to force them. If you feel like you just want to listen and wander around, if that feels right, that's okay. But you need to walk into every crowded room and just be open to your heart leading you to somebody. Might have a piece of gold they need for something they're dealing with it. They might have a piece of gold to share with you. But I consider every opportunity in a large thing, I call it gold mining. We all have our pieces of gold, our wisdom in our pocket, and I dare to hand mine out and change them out for a few others. So yeah, I think it's really important. Melody, I would love to hear you talk about community, how important community is to you, and why you work so hard to build community around everything you do. Not growing up with support, not feeling loved, not feeling accepted for who I am. When I finally began to understand how to build a community that would be a positive thing for me, and that conversation is actually a little bit too long for this 30 minutes, I realized how important that I had to build it. And if I'm going to build it, I'm going to build it with people I have a common goal with, that we are not competition, that we are there to uplift each other and find success and an outlet for our passions. So if I'm involved in something, it is about community. I jump in as part of it. This isn't about me. I am a part of a group. So whether it's a writing group, a fashion group, a women in business group, a pursuit group, I embrace this as an opportunity to build another village of support, another community. Without that community, I'm not sure I care to be involved, because it's all about coming together for a common purpose. Okay, Gabriella, and thank you, Gabriella. She sent this all the way from New York. You have a talent for inviting people to explore inside themselves, to get to their inner core and share their essence, who they are, with clarity. How do you do that? Where do you start? Um, it starts because I want to know so bad. I am so interested. Most interviews, I don't do a lot of research. I try to have the basics. And then I go in and I said, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid? Um, this puts the interview in their hands. And then I record it so I don't have to write notes, and I listen. I listen for that spark in their voice. I listen for what they want to talk about. If we stall out, I have to be ready with other questions. But honestly, if you truly want to know about somebody and what inspires them, they can tell. and they open up, and they have to know as well that they're safe. I never publish anything without getting approval, unless I just can't get it. There are times I haven't been able to get it. Um, but in general, I have them give me feedback so they feel safe. They can say, oh, I shared that, I'm not comfortable. So people are in control. I try to let my questions be led by what they share and so show excitement for, and then I offer them safety. And those three things seem to really help people open up. Nala, how do you prepare for interviews? Um, if I'm doing the interview, I look up who they are and what do they do. Um, that's about it. I love to just be totally led and surprised by what they share. If I'm being interviewed, uh, I get very nervous. Um, it's not easy. I try to find out if they have a theme, if they want to give me some ideas of what they want to talk about. And that's partly because every once in a while you're interviewed and somebody hits you with a question out of the blue. What's your favorite song? In that moment, I'm not thinking about songs. I have no idea. So preparation for interviews on my side is actually very little because I'm there to interview them about their life and what they do and what their passions are. So after I've done over 200 interviews, it comes pretty organically now, and I miss it. It's been a year and a half, so I truly miss it. The one thing I would have to say is face-to-face is much better. You get a feel for their energy. You can see their face and their body responses. Through Zoom and through the phone, it's much harder to get those cues from them, so you might need to prepare a little more. Randy, when you interview people, how does it inspire and influence you? This is interesting because when it happened the very first interview I did, I got goosebumps. I'll be listening and they're sharing about their story, and all of a sudden something they say clicks, and I literally get goosebumps from head to toe. And sometimes it's an important thing I need to include in their article or chapter or book. Sometimes it's something important for me. And it's always interesting to go back and listen to the recording and see if it hits me the same way. But literally in interviews, if I get goosebumps, I know I've got to listen really carefully now and proceed cautiously, not cautiously, but purposefully. What have we got here? Colleen, can you talk a bit about the importance of social media and trying new things always? Colleen is also a blogger, and we talk a lot about writing, but we are a visual era, and you really have to make an effort to be on social media in whatever way works for you. That's a really long conversation, but she got me to dress up for a Twitter Met Gala picture, and she's always pushing me to be involved in some of the little campaigns going on social media that are outside of writing, but will introduce me to a new audience. So yeah, being really aware and open is a good thing. Last question I've got here, and then I'll go down there. Randy, what are examples of how your books and talks have inspired people to change their paths, and how have they moved forward in helping inspiring others? I'm not 100% sure. As an author, what you get, people will say, oh, I love your books, they helped you so much. Oh, my daughter took it on her trip and it really helped her move through things. The fact that they read my books makes me happy. The fact that they found value in my books makes me thrilled, because I really am not full of wisdom. I was a broken person who listened to interview and was filled up with all this wisdom about other people. And my job is to give that wisdom wings for other people. I'm supposed to pass it on. I'm a conduit for them. So the fact that my books have been enjoyed is wonderful, but I don't have any specific stories of somebody. I just know it's been such a positive experience to get a part of. So I'm just going to go down here. It says my fiance has that. What's the phobia? I call it agoraphobia. Now, Deborah, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm not afraid. Maybe you could clarify that a little bit. I just had very, very poor self-esteem because I was told that I was imperfect. Let me see. Live in community. So many great comments here. no questions, but I am just loving this. So, do you use your bodily intuition to discover who is true blue? I trust my instincts. I trust my instincts. So my body, I don't know, but I try to listen to my heart. If something feels off, I don't do it. If I feel I have to leap, even with no preparation, I do it. I'm a great leaper. Um, we are just about out of time, and I want to close with something that's, you called someone else something. Yeah, I'm not sure on some of these questions. I'm going to have to look at them afterwards. So I want to close with something that I love to share, and that's the idea of it's never too late. I answered an ad at the age of 50. That magazine folded at 51. I went back on Craigslist and advertised and linked up with somebody and ended up starting a magazine. Um, I was in an event and saw somebody speak and leapt into publishing books. It is never too late, and there's all kinds of examples. And I have a favorite one. His name is Harry Weinstein. Uh, he was born early in the century, 1910, I think, or something. He was married and was involved in the writing industry. He was a script reader and a book writer, and he did some freelance articles. He wrote over 24 novels that none of them got published. Nobody liked his books. No, nobody. So here he is. He's 92, and his wife of 57 years passes away, and he's got all this spare time. So he says, "I think I'm going to try to write my memoir again." So he started writing it at 92. Growing up in Ireland, an abusive family, and moving to North America, and sent it off. And 18 months after it landed on somebody's desk in England, she said, "This is a great one. I'm going to publish it." It got published when he was 96. He started it, but he had 24 novels that all were rejected during his prime. At 92, he starts writing one. It gets accepted, and it is published when he's 96. He goes on to publish, I believe, 2 more books, and then one after he passed. He got an artist in residency in his 90s, and right before he passed away at 101, he said his 90s were the most productive years of his life. So anytime you're feeling like I do at times, I'm over the hill, I'm out of step, maybe it's too late. It's not too late. He started at 92. So get out there, don't be afraid to leap. Put your questions in here. I'm going to be going through this on a regular basis for the next week. So if you want, I will put a link to my website if you're interested in my books. And I am just going to throw out a quick thing. I'm over time. I'm sorry. I'm hanging up shortly. I am considering starting a podcast in January that goes along with my branding, where people will come on and share one story from their life, not their whole life, the story of, and it can be funny, it can be serious, it can be anything you want it to be. I'm gonna keep it short, like a 30-minute in and out. So I'm open to people who are interested in this. I'm still trying to consider it, so you're always welcome to email me if you have an idea, a story that you think you'd like to come on and share, because I'd like to have you. I think it's my trademark. It's the stories of real people living real lives who will define our generation, and you definitely are one of the real people. So thank you so much. I am sorry, Jennifer and Shelley, I went a little bit over. And thank you to everybody who came and who listens to the recording later. I'm here for you. Let me know what you need.